Hello, this is Dr. Tae, and today's topic is seed oils, linoleic acid, which is a form of omega 6s, and they're what they call a polyunsaturated fat. And the linoleic acid, in the most common form, comes from seed oils. And seed oils happens to be everywhere in terms of olive oil, canola oil, cottonseed oil, soybean oils, and nut seeds. And all of these seed oils, they're very high in what they call linoleic acid. Whether it's cooked or uncooked, that's a whole different ballgame. But the linoleic acid, when it accumulates in the body, it's not tend to be good overall. And one of the findings of omega 3s is that it helps the cardiovascular and brain development. And omega 6s, they're usually good for skin and hair. So it's good for certain things, but not always. But the current omega 3s and 6 ratio for most Americans is 4 to 1, if not 20 to 1. And I'm sure you've seen videos of Americans walking around Times Square around the 1950s compared to today. The obesity level is so much higher now. In fact, as I made videos, the number one killer in the United States was not all of these things, is not cancer, is basically heart disease. And the major contributing source of this is the oils that we consume in our everyday lives. And Uncle Roger, he promotes the comedian guy with the fried rice. Yeah, that's all linoleic acid. Um, Ramsey Gordon, he cooks with linoleic acid. Our general media public is blasting us with cooking tips and cooking recipes of all of these things so that we are always cooking with olive oil, canola oil, and things of that sort. And then you hear the counter argument, well, I don't cook with olive oil. I'd rather cook with avocado oil because the specific heat content is a little bit higher and therefore it's much more healthier for you. Well, in that case, I have this little graph right here. All of these are cooking oil. If you look at my mouse cursor over here, and over here it says linoleic acid. Just convert linoleic acid to the understanding of omega 6s. Okay, it's a fancy name. And the linoleic acid content is so much higher in safflower oil, grapeseed oil, sunflower oil, corn oil, cottonseed oil, soybean oil, rice bran, peanut, canola. And then all of a sudden you see olive oil. It's like, ooh, the linoleic acid drops from at the top from 70 to 10%. And avocado oil goes to 10%. And people are like, oh, how you cook with olive oil, therefore it's good for you. And the person who said that was my wife. Because I tried to tell her, stop cooking with olive oil. And olive oil, the good ones on average is 10%, but it has a range from 3% to 27% because it's the most widely used cooking oil. Then you have lard. They should differentiate lard in terms of like pork and different animals. Palm oil is 10%, so they're all within the range of 10%. Tallow, butter. However, when you get to the grass fed area, it's down to 1%. And as I stated in my previous video, the difference between grass fed animals that eat grass, they have higher omega 3s. And if they're fed corn or seed oils, this country subsidizes corn, so therefore corn feed is really high in cows, and therefore the cows are made up of omega 6s instead of omega 3s. And that's basically what it comes down to. And if we eat cows the way they were intended to from eating grass, the linoleic acid content is much, much, much lower. Here are some studies that I want to put your attention to. Let's start with, this is a graph of linoleic acid in human adipose tissue in terms of percentages and intake grams per person. As you can see, it goes really high into 10,500, right? But if we go a little bit up in this graph, we go by the year and the content in human adipose tissue. So in 1955, the linoleic acid content, aka omega 6 content, was not that high because chances are these people were eating grass-fed cows, and before all this seed oils or seed were fed into the animals that we consume. And today, Look at this. After 2005, the adipose tissue is close to 25% of our own adipose tissue. So this is really, really high. Now, polyunsaturated fatty acids in food chains in the United States is so high. And this is the study that shows that omega-3s and omega-6s are very highly imbalanced in our food supply. And omega-3s are high in EPA and DHA. One day I'll do a separate video just on this topic, why it's so important to eat more omega-3s. Yes, we should be consuming omega-6s, but the ratio should be much lower than what it is. So if you go out into the supermarket not knowing these things and you're watching all these YouTube videos and cooking channels and things like that, and what you consider normal out there, you'll end up cooking with olive oil to make your dishes. And this type of lifestyle leads to the fact that this country is dying from heart disease and Alzheimer's. There is a strong correlation between linoleic acid intake and psychological disorders. The background of this study is the association between omega-6s intake and mental disorders has not been extensively studied in Middle Eastern population. We investigated this association between linoleic acid intake and the prevalence of depression, anxiety, and psychological distress in a large group of Iranian adults. And they sampled about 3,362 middle-aged adults. Linoleic acid, aka seed oils, aka omega-6s, intake was determined through a validated dish based on 106 item semi-quantitative food frequency questionnaire. Long story short, when they sampled all of these people, basically it comes out to stratified analysis by sex revealed that men in the fourth quartile of linoleic acid intake compared to the first quartile had 80% higher odds of depression after considering all potential co-founders. More consumption of seed oils, omega-6s, linoleic acid, which they're the same thing, was also associated with higher odds of depression in older adults. And normal weight individuals, additionally higher intake of linoleic acid, which is the same thing as omega-6s or seed oils, was related to 90% higher odds of psychological distress in older participants. No significant relation was found between linoleic acid intake and anxiety. So the conclusion was that linoleic acid as a percentage of energy was positively associated with depression, especially in men, older adults, and normal weight subjects. So on the flip side, there's a separate study here. Omega-3 fatty acids for depression in adults has the opposite effect. Major depressive disorder, MDD, is highly debilitating, difficult to treat as a high rate of recurrence. And long story short, the review includes 35 relevant studies, 34 involving a total of 1,924 participants investigating the impact of omega-3 supplementation compared to placebo, and one study involving 40 participants investigated the impacts of omega-3 supplementation compared to antidepressant treatment. For the placebo comparison of omega-3s plus supplementation resulted in a small to modest benefit for depressive symptomology. At present, we do not have sufficient high data, but basically, small to modest, the people who took omega-3s did have an impact for depression in adults. So I ask the general public, when you eat a meal like General Tso chicken from your typical Chinese takeout restaurant, when you eat that food, you feel great, but most people crash and are really nodding to go to sleep. And meals like that are doing that to you, not because of the meal and you ate so much, because the linoleic acid content is really, really high along with the sugar. So it's giving you a crash, but also creates a tremendous amount of inflammatory responses in your body. So people with rheumatoid arthritis or arthritic conditions, this is wreaking havoc all over your body. And these are the meals that people should not be taking on a regular basis and minimize. People are cooking with seed oils in their everyday lives, and these seed oils are in prepackaged food all the time, and there's not enough omega-3s in our readily available diet. And omega-3s, once again, are in grass-fed butter, grass-fed meats, wild-caught fishes, And like sardines, the DHA and EPA is like exponentially higher compared to tuna, salmon. And most people, they don't want to eat things that are like sardines because I hear all sorts of excuses like sardines, I don't like the taste of it, or whatever the reason they come in. But if you look at the percentages of the EPA and DHA, is so much higher. And when I eat sardines, I feel great right afterwards. The way it makes me feel. So I implore you guys to share this video to other people that are always cooking with seed oils, to really start making this change, because making this one single change will prevent you from taking medication for your cardiovascular system and potentially getting Alzheimer's in your old age. We're headed towards that direction, as in one of my previous videos, that the United States will be the first country to develop diabetes type 3, which we are already doing right now. And in order for me to stop that, is making videos like this. So for more content like this, please hit the like button, subscribe, share this video, and I look forward to seeing you in future videos. Take care. Bye bye.